Human rights in Turkey are protected by a variety of international law treaties, which take precedence over domestic legislation. According to Article 90 of the 1982 Constitution, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights was not signed by Turkey until 2000. The issue of human rights is of high importance for the negotiations with the European Union. Acute human rights issues include in particular the status of Kurds in Turkey. The Kurdish-Turkish conflict has caused numerous human rights violations over the years. There is an ongoing debate in the country on the right to life, torture, freedom of expression as well as freedoms of religion, assembly and association, commitment to international human rights law. The Republic of Turkey has entered various human rights commitments, some of which are expressed in the 1982 Turkish Constitution, Part 2 of which guarantees fundamental rights and freedoms, such as the right to life, security of person, and right to property. In addition, Turkey has signed a number of treaties, shown in the tables below. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was signed in 1949. The European Convention on Human Rights places Turkey under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights. In 1987, Turkey accepted the right to apply individually to the ECTHR, and 1990 recognized the compulsory jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights, under Article 46 of the ECHR. In October 2009, the European Commission on Enlargement to the European Union attested regarding Turkey that some progress on observance of international human rights law. However, implementation of some ECTHR judgments requiring legislative amendments has been outstanding for several years. Further efforts are needed to strengthening the institutional framework on human rights, in particular as regards the establishment of an independent human rights institution and of an ombudsman. European Court of Human Rights judgments. Turkey's human rights record has long continued to attract scrutiny, both internally and externally. According to the Foreign Ministry, Turkey was sentenced to €33 million in 567 different cases between 1990, when Turkey effectively allowed individual applications to the European Court of Human Rights, and 2006. Most abuses were done in the southeast, in the frame of the Kurdish-Turkish conflict. In 2007, there were 2,830 applications lodged against the Republic of Turkey before the ECTHR, and consequently 331 judgments on the merits have been issued, affirming 319 violations and 9 non-violations. In 2008, Turkey ranked second after Russia in the list of countries with the largest number of human rights violation cases open at the European Court of Human Rights, with 9,000 cases pending as of August 2008. In 2011, the ECTHR issued 159 judgments that found violations by Turkey, the most of any country, with Russia coming second at 121 judgments. Between 1 November 1998 and 31 December 2008, the ECTHR received 24,945 applications from Turkey. It declared 2,237 cases admissible and 13,615 inadmissible. During the same time, it reached 1,905 judgments finding at least one violation in 1,652 cases. While there are hardly any decision regarding Article 14 of the European Convention of Human Rights, many judgments concerning Article 2 and Article 3 of the Convention were taken on procedural grounds rather than testifying an involvement of state agencies. According to the European Commission on Enlargement of the EU, Turkey continued to make progress on the execution of ECTHR judgments. All pecuniary compensation was paid on time, totaling €5.2 million in 2008. The ECTHR has heard 9 cases against Turkey concerning political party bans by the Constitutional Court of Turkey. In all but one case, the European Court has ruled against the decision to ban, finding Turkey in violation of Articles 10 and 11 of the European Convention. The ACTA's decision concerning the Welfare Party has been criticized for lack of consistency with its other decisions, in particular by Human Rights Watch. One ECTHR judgment sentenced Turkey to a €103,000 fine for its decisions about the Yüksekova gang, related to the JITEM clandestine gendarmerie intelligence unit. The EHCR also sentenced in 2006 Turkey to a €28,500 fine for the JITEM murder of 72-year-old Kurdish writer Musa Antar in 1992 in Diyarbakir. Other cases include the 2000 Akik v. Turkey judgment, concerning the assassination of a trade unionist, or the Loğa Izadu v. Turkey case in 1996, which set a precedent in the Cyprus dispute, as the ECTHR ordered Turkey to give financial compensation to a person expelled from the Turkish-controlled side of Cyprus. The ECTHR also awarded in 2005 Kurdish deputy Leyla Zana €9,000 from the Turkish government, ruling Turkey had violated her rights of free expression. Zana, who had been recognized as prisoner of conscience by Amnesty International and had been awarded the Sakharov Prize by the European Parliament, had been jailed in 1994, allegedly for being a member of the outlawed PKK, but officiously for having spoken Kurdish in public during her parliamentary oath. The right to live. The right to live may be threatened by other means than the death penalty. In particular, during the 1990s there were many instances of extrajudicial executions, killings by unidentified perpetrators and cases of disappearances. Capital punishment. The death penalty has not been implemented in Turkey since 1984. Turkey abolished the sentence for peacetime offences in 2002 and for all offences in 2004. The sentence was replaced by aggravated life imprisonment. According to Article 9 of Law 5275 on the execution of sentences, these prisoners are held in individual cells in high-security prisons and are allowed to exercise in a neighboring yard 1 hour per day. Extrajudicial executions. In 1990, Amnesty International published its first report on extrajudicial executions in Turkey. In the following years, the problem became more serious. The Human Rights Foundation of Turkey determined the following figures on extrajudicial executions in Turkey for the years 1991 to 2001. In 2001, the UN Special Rapporteur on Extrajudicial, Summary or Arbitrary Executions, Asma Jahangir, presented a report on a visit to Turkey. The report presented details of killings of prisoners. For the years 2000 to 2008, the Human Rights Association gives the following figures on doubtful deaths, deaths in custody, extrajudicial execution, torture by paid village guards. In 2008, the human rights organization Mazlum Dare counted 25 extrajudicial killings in Turkey. Unsolved killings. The mass violations of human rights in the mainly Kurdish-populated southeast and eastern regions of Turkey in the 1990s took the form of enforced disappearances and killings by unknown perpetrators which the state authorities showed no willingness to solve. In 2009, the Human Rights Association stated that up to the end of 2008 a total of 2,949 people had been killed by unknown perpetrators and 2,308 people had become victims of extrajudicial executions. A parliamentary commission to research killings by unknown perpetrators was founded in 1993 and worked for about 2 years. Many members complained that they had not been assisted and their work had been undermined. One member of the commission, Upasik, stated that the Turkish Hezbollah had been behind many of these killings and added that the state had had 3 effective arms in the fight against terrorism: special teams, village guards and Hezbollah. Although he had witnessed about 80 actions of Hezbollah in Adıyaman province, the then Minister for the Interior had said that there was nothing by that name. This in turn had made him believe that the state supported Hezbollah. Human Rights Watch first called for an investigation of links between Hezbollah and the security forces in 1992. In a separate report, HRW stated, during 1992 there was an extremely disturbing increase in the number of suspicious deaths in southeast Turkey. Hundreds of people were killed by unknown assailants. Many of those people were leaders or in positions of responsibility in the Kurdish community. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, political leaders, journalists, human rights activists, businessmen. Human rights activists were among the victims. 13 of the suspicious killings since January 1992 were of journalists. Based on the data of the Interior Ministry, the Daily Zaman reported that between 1987 to 2001 a total of 2,914 political killings, 1,334 of them in the responsibility area of the police and 1,580 in area of the gendarmerie, were committed in the eastern and southern Eastern Anatolia regions. 457 of the killings in areas of the police and 1,291 in areas of the gendarmerie had not been clarified. The following figures were presented in the annual reports of the HRFT between 1990 and 2001. The Human Rights Association presents the following figures for the years 1999 to 2008. The Human Rights Association Mazlumda presented figures on killing by unknown assailants and suspicious death for the years 2005 to 2008. Disappearances in Turkey. The military campaign against Kurdish secessionists in eastern Anatolia has been accompanied by numerous enforced disappearances, which also gave rise to judgments of the European Court of Human Rights. There were only a handful of cases of disappearances in Turkey in the 1980s, but a high number of deaths in custody. The opposite was true for the 1990s, when the number of people who disappeared after having been abducted by agents of the states rapidly increased. In 1998, the UN Working Group on Enforced or Involuntary Disappearances issued a report on the visit to Turkey by 2 members of the working group, from 20 to 26 September 1998. It stated inter alia, most of the disappearances concerned persons of Kurdish ethnic origin and occurred in the provinces of Diyarbakir and Siirt, in southeast Anatolia, where the armed and security forces are combating the PKK and where a state of emergency is in force. Some of the reported disappearances took place in Antalya, Izmir and Istanbul. Most of the cases followed the same pattern. The missing persons had allegedly been arrested at their homes on charges of belonging to the PKK and taken to the police station, but their detention was later denied by the authorities. In her report of 18 December 2001, the UN Special Rapporteur on Extrajudicial, Summary or Arbitrary Executions, Asma Jahangir, wrote, while the number of cases of abductions or disappearances have decreased over the last few years, at the time of the Special Rapporteur's visit such incidents still did occur, particularly in the remote areas of southeast Turkey. And there was deep concern at the recent disappearance of 2 persons. In some places on the internet a list attributed to the HRA can be found. It is said that the original list contained 839 names, but that adding further names the list covered 1,251 names in the end. In a revised list that covers only the time between 1980 and 1999, Helmut Obadiak reached a figure of 818 cases of disappearances in Turkey. The Saturday Mothers held weekly protests against disappearances between May 1995 and 1999. They had to suspend their action on 13 March 1999 after week 200, because of intense pressure, detention and ill treatment. In March 2009 the Saturday Mothers took their action up again. Torture. The widespread and systematic use of torture in Turkey was first observed by Amnesty International after the 1971 Turkish coup d'etat. Until 2002 the organization continued to speak of systematic torture in Turkey. Gunter Verheugen, Commissioner for Enlargement of the European Union, went to Turkey in September 2004 and maintained that torture was no longer systematic practice in Turkey. The Human Rights Association protested against this evaluation and pointed at recent figures and definitions of systematic torture by the European Committee for the Prevention of Torture and the UN Committee Against Torture. Since 2005, incidents of torture seem to be on the rise. According to an October report by the Prime Ministry's Human Rights Presidency, the number of torture and cruel treatment cases reported in the first 6 months of the year surpassed the number reported in the first half of 2007. The HRP reported that, in the first half of the year, 178 persons reported cruel treatment and 26 reported torture, up from 79 reports of cruel treatment and 17 reports of torture during the same period in 2007. In the report on progress of November 2008, the European Commission stated, the number of applications to NGOs in relation to cases of torture and ill treatment has increased, in particular outside official places of detention, notably during apprehension, transfer, or in the open with no detention registered. There is a lack of prompt, impartial and independent investigation into allegations of human rights violations by members of security forces. In the 2009 annual report, Amnesty International stated, reports of torture and other ill treatment rose during 2008, especially outside official places of detention but also in police stations and prisons. In its 2012 annual review, Freedom from Torture, the UK charity which works with survivors of victims of torture, stated that the charity had received 79 referrals of individuals from Turkey for clinical treatment and other services. Deaths in custody. An important characteristics of the period following the 12th of September 1980 military intervention was the disregard to the right to life and the increase in torture cases and deaths due to torture. The HRFD published 2 reports on deaths in custody presenting a list of 419 deaths in custody with a suspicion that torture might have been the reason. Another 15 deaths were attributed to hunger strikes while medical neglect was given as the reason for 26 deaths. On the basis of this list, Helmut Obadiak compiled a revised list for 20 years and concluded that in 428 cases torture may have been the reason for the death of prisoners. In 2008 alone, the Human Rights Foundation of Turkey reported 39 deaths in prison. In some cases torture was involved. In 2012, 2 prison guards and an official were given life sentences for the torture death of activist Engin Seba, the first such verdict in Turkey's history. Prison conditions. Turkey has repeatedly been criticized for poor prison conditions and in particular for not solving the problem of overcrowding. Following the 1980 Turkish coup d'etat, political prisoners tried in military courts were held in military prisons and were thus subjected to military discipline. Prisoners were obliged to participate in daily roll calls, the singing of marches and drills in the open air. In particular, Diyarbakir and Mamluk military prisons became notorious for the routine beatings which accompanied attempts to enforce military discipline among civilians. In addition, so-called inaugural beatings had been institutionalized in almost all prisons in Turkey. In 2008, allegations of ill treatment in prisons and during transfer continued. Small group isolation remained a problem across the prison system for people accused or convicted of politically motivated offenses. The Human Rights Foundation of Turkey registered 39 deaths in prison. Freedom of religion. Although its population is overwhelmingly Muslim, Turkey claims to be a secular country per Article 24 of the Turkish Constitution. The two main Islamic streams in Turkey are Sunni and Alevi, a branch of Shia Islam. In Turkey, Alevi are the minority, estimated at 17% of the Muslim population. Religious education is compulsory in primary and secondary education. Mainly Sunni theology is taught. The government oversees Muslim religious facilities and education through its Directorate of Religious Affairs, which is under the authority of the Prime Ministry. The Directorate regulates the operation of the country's 77,777 registered mosques and employs local and provincial imams, who are civil servants. Sunni imams are nominated and paid by the state. The Alevis pray in Samevis. Samevari have no legal status as places of worship in the state. However, Kusadasi and Tunsli municipalities ruled in 2008 that Alevi Samevari are considered places of worship. Exact figures on the non-Islamic population in Turkey are not available. Some sources estimate the Christian population between 3 and 5%. Their communities mainly exist in Istanbul with Armenian and Greek Orthodox Christians. In southeastern Turkey, other groups like the Syriacs and Yazidi can be found. In the big cities, Jewish and other communities such as the Jehovah's Witnesses exist. According to the Treaty of Lausanne, only the Armenian, Greek, and Jewish communities are recognized as minorities. According to the human rights organization Mazlumda, the military charged individuals with lack of discipline for activities that included performing Muslim prayers or being married to women who wore headscarves. In December 2008, the General Staff issued 24 dismissals, 5 of which pertain to alleged Islamic fundamentalism. According to the Progress Report 2008 of the European Union, freedom of religion, freedom of worship continue to be generally respected. The law on foundations adopted in February 2008 addresses, among other things, a number of property issues regarding non-Muslim minorities.